good evening, and welcome to Legacy Christian Academy's 8th grade promotion. Upper school will be here before we know it. Unfortunately, we will be back at the bottom of the totem pole, losing our seniority. Before we head off to upper school, we have decided to look back at some of the memories we have made through the years. Even though we often drive each other crazy, we care for each other and began this new adventure together. From the first day of pre-K to this year, we have made so many memories together. From a scorpion in a classroom to the current stench that can be smelled throughout the 8th grade hallway. Walk with us as we talk about some of the funniest, most memorable, and lovable times of our experience at Legacy Christian Academy.
Pre-K, a time I can't remember half of, but here's some of the very few things from pre-K that I can recall. One of the things is that we should have taken better advantage of was nap time. We 8th graders desperately want that back now. I also remember this thing about Q and U getting married because you can't have the letter Q without a U. To a kid, hearing that letters got married was weird. Around Christmas time, the entire hallway was decorated as a winter wonderland. What was it called again? Oh right, the Arctic Blast. In pre-K, they brought a mini train to school and we were able to ride it around the building. Anything else from a decade ago that I can remember? Ah, yes. The rule that would follow us through every art and craft we ever did. Color in between the lines. And that's it.
Kindergarten was a big year of firsts. We started off the year with our first day of big kids school. We started making our first friends, and most of us learned how to tie our shoes. We learned how to write our names and started spelling words our little brains could grasp. We practiced sight words and started reading our first books. The many projects made school fun, but who knew that the whole school thing came along with 12 more years? We started to appreciate nap time, the time that we would secretly talk to our friends. Little did we know then that we would miss this time every day for the rest of our lives. We finally got to run in laps for Legacy and have fun during field day with the big kids. We wished for homework and couldn't wait for first grade. The 100th day of school celebration came fast, and before we knew it, we were walking across the stage in our little caps and gowns at our kindergarten graduation. Then, we graduated to the number grades and couldn't wait for the following years. Thank goodness we don't have to wear those little white caps again today.
The first weeks of first grade, we were getting used to real school. Of course, usually our idea of real school isn't the teacher finding a scorpion in the children's book she was reading to us, screaming, and then throwing the book towards us. While it wasn't fun at the time, it makes for great content now. Also, at this time, we had a life-changing moment, losing teeth. Yes, we all started losing our teeth, except for me. I started losing teeth in 4th grade, but we're not here to talk about that. One day we particularly looked forward to was Pet Day. Most of us brought dogs and cats. I brought a gecko, but a kid named Ben Self brought his horse. He was an overachiever. Another one of those days was the invention convention. People created something that made their normal life easier. Some kids made things that helped them in a hobby. This was the period of life when many of us were addicted to Legos, so a lot of kids made things that had to do with Legos. I made a Lego vacuum, which was supposed to suck up Legos, but I realized they already made one. It was called a vacuum. One fateful day came when it was almost release time. An eerie voice came over the PA and said, "There is a tornado warning. Teachers, take your kids to your assigned emergency location." So, of course, it was entirely peaceful. No, immediately chaos erupted. But we obviously survived.
Second grade was a very memorable year. Our fantastic teachers, Mrs. Embry, Mrs. Walsh, and Mrs. Rogers, all helped us learn lessons we would cherish for years to come, even though we didn't even know we were learning them. In second grade, we had some big changes. We read our first novel, Ribsy. We finally were able to have recess on the football field. We learned the beginning of cursive, and we also started some really hard math, borrowing when we subtracted. Second grade was the year of no worries. We practically didn't even know what the word quiz was. We also did some really fun projects. One of them was an autobiography project where we created the person we studied on a can. We then put different facts about the person inside of the can and then gave an oral presentation. Also, in second grade, we made different habitats out of shoeboxes and created poetry that we presented during the Poetry Cafe. Second grade also included a very fun field trip, going to the aquarium where we created memories that we can still remember today.
Third grade was the year that we officially became big kids. It was our first year with lockers. The girls all had their fancy carpet, chandeliers, curtains, and mirrors, but the parents of the boys had to force their children just to put shelves in. This was the year that school became school. Though we still had to have the boring classes, math, science, writing, and social studies, sorry, teachers, we still found ways to have fun. If we didn't have multiplication fact songs in third grade, I think everyone would be failing algebra right now. And let's not forget the fast fact quizzes we had, which could be very interesting given how competitive our class was. During third grade, we all participated in the Living Museum. During this event, we chose a historical person, dressed up as if we were them, and gave a speech about the events of their life. I think the best field trip we had that year didn't include anything academic. We went ice skating, which basically consisted of us falling on our faces the entire time. We had such a good time that Coach Truman said we would go every year, but we're still waiting for our next ice skating field trip. We read one of my favorite books of all time, Charlotte's Web, and we all started crying during the movie, or maybe that was just me, hopefully not. One of the most artistic projects we have ever done was during third grade. We had our Michelangelo back painting project. For this project, we were told to lay on our backs and make our own special creation based on one of Michelangelo's classic paintings. I still can't believe how a beautiful painting could look like such a monster. Overall, third grade was such a great year.
Fourth grade was a good year. For teachers, we had Miss Pfizer, Miss Thompson, Miss Brubaker, who's now Miss Butts. Miss Pfizer taught us math and English, Miss Thompson taught us history, and Miss Brubaker taught us science. We went on the amazing fourth grade field trip around the best state, our own. We visited many places with historical Texan value, like the Alamo, the Capitol building, some crazy caverns, and quite a few Texas Revolution museums. However, my favorite part was when we hung out at T-Bar M Ranch. The first night, I slept on a top bunk with no railing. That was a mistake. In the middle of the night, I rolled over, fell off, and obtained a line of bruises all the way across my back. It was fun. In fourth grade, we also read some books. Our favorite was Where the Red Fern Grows, for a reason we all know. Something involving the dogs. This was the last year before DEAR, which stands for Drop Everything and Read. When we had bad weather when we were younger, we would stay inside and play board games and Legos. We'd previously loved it when it rained, until DEAR replaced indoor recess, making this the best year for rambunctious children like us. However, there were some rather unfathomable curricular activities. Penmanship booklets, for example. Though those value of these booklets did not carry on to nowadays because my handwriting is still absolute garbage. On the other hand, we did some enjoyable activities too. There was a rotation of eager fourth graders foaming at the mouth to be featured on the week's Good Morning Legacy. All of the fourth grade classrooms would freeze every week to watch it. There were lots of funny parts on the show, and we learned some things from them too. This was the year I decided to read the Rick Riordan Percy Jackson series, and I picked a good time. We learned about Greek mythology, and I thought I could teach the class. We went on another field trip as well, the fake geocaching field trip, which was when you hunted for a hidden object by using GPS coordinates posted on a website or an app. I'm pretty sure our coordinates were wrong because we kept ending up at some abandoned playground. In the end, we ended up at the right place.
Fifth grade was year of firsts. It was our first year of middle school, where we were taught to be more independent in our work and how we acted. It was also our first year of IXL, the math program that nobody liked because of how it bumped you down a lot of points when you got just one question incorrect. We additionally got to experience different fine arts such as band, where we got to rotate instruments, art, and choir, where Mrs. Cunningham taught us how to sing "Oh Treble Clef." In language arts, we learned the preposition song from Mrs. Lowe. We also read different novels and made book trailers that went along with them. And it was the beginning of the unfortunate learning to diagram. And let's not forget the experience of having to sit in that dark room with our teachers to watch the dreaded puberty video. At the closing of the year, we did a talent show on the last day of school, where everyone did one act in order to participate. Some were interesting than others. Overall, 5th grade was an amazing start to middle school, and by the end of the year, we are ready to proceed on the long but much worth it journey of adventures and new experiences.
Sixth grade, the most awkward stage of our lives, at least up to that point. There were no photos that any of us would actually be proud of, but sixth grade was fun. We were introduced to the concept of homework and realized that stress was a real thing. We had many new amazing teachers. Mrs. Watts, the math teacher who brought popcorn, Mrs. Blue, the witty science teacher, and Mrs. Lamsey, the comforting English teacher, and Dr. Dorsey, the jokester of them all. Mrs. Blue turned us into water molecules and reminded us to watch out. Felix, the classroom turtle, was on the move. He lacked potty training skills and didn't seem to mind leaving messes for the rest of us to pick up. We had many fun and educational projects, including the Holocaust Project, the CAT Project, and the Bible Video Project. With the girls and boys separated for Bible class, we went around the school making videos to go with our memory verses for that year. A significant portion of English consisted of the Holocaust Project and of grammar. We read The Giver and The Hiding Place, but academic things were not the only things going on in the classroom. In the desks, you would find kids playing with fidget spinners, and we will never forget Ava Love's Black Market for slime. At $3 per slime, no one could say no. Those weren't our only sixth grade obsessions. We also told ourselves that silly bands were cool, and that water bottle flipping wasn't annoying. The best part of sixth grade, though, was Sky Ranch. We'll never forget the memories of our own skits, but especially our teacher's skits, with Dr. Dorsey playing the student who wouldn't stop flipping the water bottle, Mr. Dibley playing the one who had to go to the bathroom, and Mrs. Watts playing the good kid. We all know that that was their message to us. We needed to shape up, and we could get pretty annoying. Sixth grade was filled with many ups and downs, from picking our fine arts to making kites. It may have been hard at the time, but we made memories we will have for the rest of our lives.
Seventh grade was definitely a big change that came with much more responsibility. We started switching classes, participated in dissections, and were constantly called young adults. And we also read our first ever Shakespearean play. Seventh grade also came along with being called Sevies by the eighth graders, and we were introduced to the whole idea of seniority. As a group, we definitely began a phase of rebellion. For example, the Alex payments. This year had also a very exciting time in store for us, the time when school closed down for a week because of the flu. Seventh grade was also a year of great, memorable teachers who definitely kept things interesting. We had Miss Ansel 101's, Jeff, Miss Thomas's diffuser, or more commonly known as vape machine, Miss Johnson's snakes, Miss Buell's treasure box, and Mr. Martin's sarcasm. In seventh grade, we were also introduced to the whole idea of flex packets, Alex, finals, ego elective, and trailblazers. We had the opportunity to try out for sports teams and had to learn how to manage our time well, which often resulted in late grades as we were still figuring this out. Seventh grade was full of fun memories we'll take with us to the upper school. Though we might have been called young adults, we still acted like children. For example, no matter how many times we were told to keep the girls' locker hallway clean, we were never completely able to, which resulted in binders being sent to the front office. This year definitely made us miss the comforts of lower school, but in the end prepared us very well for eighth grade.
Eighth grade, our last year of middle school and our first year of being treated like young adults, although we may not have always acted like young adults. This year, we did so many fun things. This year in English, we read 2 very interesting books and plays, one being Romeo and Juliet. During the study of this Shakespearean piece, we memorized the prologue, which we all know by heart. When one person begins reciting it, the whole grade recites with them. We also read To Kill a Mockingbird, which I think we can all agree was a tad bit more interesting than Romeo and Juliet. English class this year also included the biography project, which was enjoyable to many. We studied an influential person, made U-books, and presented them. In science, we did many awesome experiments and projects, one of these being the box project. Honor Science made tiny houses out of boxes, and On Level made marble racetracks, where everyone competed to have the slowest race time. This year, we also made Rube Goldberg projects, where we made cool machines which completed a skill, like how to make lemonade or how to kick off summer. History this year included the very stressful Titan paper, or at least it was at the time, where we wrote about the influences Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Carnegie, and Morgan during the Industrial Age. We also made trifolds about the Cold War era novel, Breaking Stalin's Nose. Each student in class was assigned a few chapters to read and write about. Later on, we presented them in order and were able to figure out what happened before and after our own chapters. In Bible, we learned how to defend Christianity and how to evangelize. Math included lots of sarcasm and dry humor from Miss Beck. In class, everyone competed to pass out papers to receive a sticker, because if you got 10 stickers, you received an Alex Pass. In math, we learned many useful skills that we know we will need for upper school. This year included the long-awaited Virginia trip. We visited Jamestown, Williamsburg, Yorktown, Mount Vernon, Monticello, the White House, Lincoln Memorial, and so much more. The trip included lots of vlogs, MAGA hats, and fried chicken. Towards the end of this year, a strange smell arose. It came from some of the 8th grade boys' lockers. And let me tell you, it stunk. As we go into the upper school, we hope the smell won't follow us. We had so many fun adventures and have made so many great memories from our years in the lower school. We have taken our last steps in middle school and are about to take our first steps in the upper school. 8th graders, we made it! I know that we are all so excited to move up, and I know that we will make many more great memories.
It has been so exciting for the girls to get to play sports for Legacy this year. We have made so many good memories. Our coaches were definitely not afraid to kick our rear ends in conditioning this year. Along with the other sports, volleyball athletes remember having lots of conditioning. This year has also seemed to be the year of rain in our LCA sports world. Our first middle school football game got rained out, the big homecoming game also got canceled and then rescheduled, and the middle school cheerleaders' only away game that we had the opportunity to attend got rained out. And this is just to name a few. Our first day of track was freezing cold and pouring rain the entire time. But that definitely did not stop the coaches from giving us a great first practice to start off a great first year. That practice is where we all learned Eagles ready, only to expect a response back of yes, sir. Lucky for track, our practice was right after school, but for most sports, that was not the case, such as swim, who had to be there by 6:15 in the morning. Most people remember the early morning practices of their sports, but sometimes the coaches would help us out a little, like when the basketball coaches sometimes brought donuts. Sports have been a great way for us to make friends and bond with each other along the way. The girls' soccer team remembers having fun watching the boys' soccer games after theirs had ended. We've had so many fun times this year, and we give a big thank you to all the amazing LCA coaches. You have all been a major part of our year. Thank you so much for all the time you have invested into each and every Legacy athlete.
Sports are a big part of many 8th grade boys' year. Even though we sacrifice time with friends, family, and studying, most of us wouldn't trade sports for anything. This year has been amazing for us. We are blessed with multiple new coaches, including Coach Smith, Coach Gregory, Coach Allen, Coach Williams, and a returning coach, Coach Hall. Sports also had a bunch of hilarious moments. Some basketball boys pranked some others by telling them they took a private jet to a game. A few kids accidentally trucked Coach Smith during a football drill. Our football coaches also had some funny moments. Coach Smith always has voice cracks, which makes us laugh because we have them. And Coach Gregory, another one of our football coaches, drives a Chevy Tahoe, which he's obsessed with, and always talks about his car. I still don't get why he drives a soccer mom car. And our basketball coach, which I don't know why, but he owns every pair of shoes. We also learned a lot from our amazing coaches, like Eagles Ready. Sports also had many adventures, from freezing cold rained-out games to bus rides filled with hyper kids and Gatorade. Don't get me started. Sports also presented times to become closer to God. Every day, we would pray before sports, and this helped us develop a tighter relationship with God and each other. Sports really are important and help many of us to find a passion and become more proper, respectful young men.
Miss Mayberry, from being a principal to an art teacher, she has been with the school since the very beginning. She can silence an entire room with just the ring of her wind chimes. She has been the best art teacher we have ever had. With each project, we learn something new, from the fundamentals of art to learning how to use a box cutter correctly without getting a RIN web notice. The projects we did started out small, beginning with a name tag, and grew larger, like making a mini house with 500 square feet. Other projects we did were creating Zintegel cathedrals with Sharpies and graphite, making pottery one week, and then weaving with wires in the pottery the next. Drawing old masters' artwork recreating it into a newer style. A pop-out unit, like creating an entire piece with only black paper and a white gel pen, and so many, many more. One of our favorite projects was the modern art unit. Most kids didn't have to try, which was a relief and breath of fresh air. Surprisingly, in the Celebrating Art competition, all of our artworks got published, and we became first for the best art studio in the United States and Canada. The biggest thing that we will miss is all the fun moments we had in art class. Miss Mayberry, on behalf of the 8th grade art students, a small paragraph cannot do you justice. From all the heartfelt talks you had with us and treating us like your own children to training us with all the iniquities of being a good artist, you have helped us grow and mature both as artists and as people. Thank you. We will remember you as a wonderful, talented, selfless woman.
In 7th and 8th grade choir, we put on multiple concerts, competed in competitions, learned songs in various languages, and went on a trip to Houston. In preparation for concerts, we learned choreography for Disney Friendship Medley, We Know the Way, and We're All in This Together. In our 7th grade spring performance, a person's shoe fell off. From that experience, we learned that the show must always go on. On our trip to Houston, we visited the mall, messed around in Buc-ee's, stayed in a hotel with our friends, and performed at ACSI. The choir members have sung songs in Latin, Swahili, and Polynesian. We couldn't have accomplished any of this without our amazing choir teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. We will all miss her charts of how close she is to losing her patience before concerts, her funny things she does while directing to make us not be a zombie choir, and the girls will forever be grateful for the dresses she picked out that we can actually move our arms in. Mrs. Rodriguez, you always add so much personality to choir class and concerts. You make the best out of every situation, even if that includes telling us to just go with it and act like we know what we are doing. Thank you for all of the lessons and memorable moments you have given us over the past years.
In 7th and 8th grade drama, we had so many fun activities and opportunities. For instance, we participated in plays in the spring and the fall. This year, the middle school drama department put on their very own play called Wagon Wheels A-Rollin'. We also had a chance to participate in school productions throughout the years, such as Seussical, Cheaper by the Dozen, Peter Pan, Snow White, and Little Women. We also played many improv games like Pan Right, Pan Left, an improv game where we play with different scenes on stage, Taxi Cab, a fun game where 4 people get into a taxi cab and they improv a scene, and What Are You Doing? Not only did we learn about performing on stage, but we also learned about the behind the scenes of acting. We learned costume, prop, and set design, and we learned about directing in drama. In drama, we learned performance skills while working on our confidence, which will all help us in the future.
Foreign languages were full of exciting events and projects this year, from the Pater Noster and the interactive notebook in Latin to creating picture books and song projects in Spanish. Whether you were in Latin or Spanish, everyone will agree that foreign languages are full of memories that we will never forget. People in Latin will remember the fun times from Quizlet Live, screaming and shouting for our teammates to click the right answers. This leads to some harmless competition between teams. And the people in Spanish will remember the fun times from creating the picture books for the people in pre-K. Latin people will also remember making volcanoes to learn about Pompeii and adding to our interactive notebooks from previous years. In addition, both our Latin feasts and Spanish fiestas were great. Every year, we picked a date to bring food from either the Mediterranean or the Spanish cultures for a day of eating and talking with friends. Thank you to Ms. Buell and Ms. Peterbaugh for bringing our knowledge about these foreign languages to expand wider.
Band has been great over the years. We have been involved. Many of us began participating in 4th grade. In 4th grade, we learned the basics of music and started to play recorders and played at a recorder concert. In 5th grade, we did our fine arts rotation. Obviously, for those of us who liked instruments, the favorite rotation was band. Mr. Murphy assigned us to instruments. We always follow his Yoda-ish words, "You don't choose the instrument chooses you." In 6th grade, we started to play real band instruments. We had a scare in 7th grade when Miss Webb tripped off the stage at the Christmas concert. She immediately stood up, brushed off, stood right back up, and took a bow. After the Christmas concert, we started to get ready for our contest in March. At the contest, we received perfect scores and afterwards went to the Galleria Mall to go ice skating. Then in 8th grade, we played at a Christmas concert. At our spring contest this year, we again received perfect scores from all the judges. To finish out this year, we played our end-of-the-year concert where many received awards and Mr. Murphy received an Infinity Gauntlet.
One thing we have been able to enjoy at Legacy is our mission projects. While on the mission trip to Houston this year, we learned two important things. The missions work is very rewarding and that it can also be very fun. On the last night of the missions trip, we went to an amusement park at the world's second largest rodeo. In LSO, or Legacy Service Organization, our students did things like clean the toys of our preschoolers or any other tasks that teachers needed done. We also helped pack 226,665 meals in the upper school gym for Feed My Starving Children while dancing to some sick 80s tunes. Afterwards, we participated in Laps of Love, our 5K to raise money to pay for the shipment to Haiti for all the meals we had packed. At Legacy, a tradition of mission is encouraged, and we look forward to continuing to participate in the upper school. I am also here to thank some very important people to our education, our parents. Thank you so much for helping us with homework, from packets to projects to last-minute trips to FedEx to getting us to 6 a.m. practices. You've supported us and encouraged us from pre-K to 8th grade. Thank you, parents.